I hope. Pray with me, please. Creator God, help us in the midst of seemingly limitless violence to remember your many signs of love and grace in our world, from people known and unknown from your creation that touch our lives, no matter what our situation is in life. Send us from this safe place, from this sanctuary. Send us forth, O Lord, to be those signs of love and grace wherever and whenever we can, to promote healing and restoration of that which is so broken in our world. And let the church say, one more time. Amen. All right. You reassure me that you are alive and well. It's good being with all of you again this Sunday morning on this Memorial Day weekend. The holiday established as a national holiday after over 600,000 lives were lost as the Civil War in this country finally came to an end. Some of us in this sanctuary remember it as Decoration Day, and therein lies, in part, what this holiday was about: to remember lives that were lost. And I would put forth for a conversation amongst ourselves, within ourselves, as to why those lives were lost, and not to leave it with the why, but what then, the good Lutheran question, right? What does that mean for me, for my household of faith, for my household, the country in which I live? This week I got a nice text from my sister-in-law back in Minnesota, sending a text of gravestones. It's about Decoration Day. It's about going to the cemetery. Oh, I understand we have lots of different feelings about that, and it's not just about that. It's not just about remembering the veterans in our families or others that we know that died in war, but also, as is always the case in war, other casualties. Other casualties, not just of those on the battlefield. As we know so well now in a faraway country called Ukraine, and we could go on down the list, could we not? But this weekend, we as a country are mourning. On a Sunday morning, you know, there is more people worshiping than just us in this sanctuary, apropos for the gospel lesson. Across this city, and as I was coming in, of course, with the media access that we have, listening to the Baptist Church in Uvalde. And so we are remembering, as hard as it is for us who are so far away geographically and not impacted in terms of our loved ones. But we know that in the body of Christ and in the body politique, if you know what I mean by that, the polis, that we are connected. And listening to the service yesterday, Perhaps all of you seeing parts of that service in another faraway place called Buffalo, New York. As we see the cross markers, I was thinking of my sister-in-law's text to me, the markers with the names. And yesterday, my wife Linda and our son went to her hometown and visited grave markers of loved ones with names on them. And oftentimes, back to the word decoration, we leave signs of love and grace. As minuscule as they might be, we yearn as human beings, what now can I do? And so we see the thousands and thousands of flowers. And on top of the morning, we have some responses to the why. And it is not unusual at all in this country that was founded on racism and fear to see what was behind the motive of the murders in Buffalo. And to see and to have to grapple with the horrible lapse of leadership in Uvalde. So what does this all have to do with our gospel lesson from John chapter 17, where Jesus is praying for unity in the midst of his own friends? As Jesus was praying that prayer, we remember, right, there weren't 12 in that room. Oh, there was as they entered that room, that space. But by the time, we don't know chronologically how things went down then, but we assume by what we do have that one had already left because of a payoff. Oh my goodness. How could we have a payoff in the midst of a gospel lesson where Jesus is praying for unity, completely one? Because Jesus knew of the betrayal and of the division that's in our hearts and our minds. And we know that the betrayal of Judas is not just Judas's betrayal. It's ours in our relationships and in our lives as well. And that of Peter and on down the line. We know how hard being completely one is in terms of what? In life's relationships. Should we start with marriage? Should we go to our households, our siblings, our parents? What does it have to do with Uvalde or Buffalo? Everything. We think right here in this congregation, the great effort, Herculean effort, to be completely one in the university district amongst a handful of churches. And it's always easy to get the finger out. Well, if it hadn't been for and we think of our nation's motto, E pluribus unum. E pluribus unum. Out of many, one. And it is that vision. We have had a variety of visions in our text coming up to today, right? The vision coming out of the heavens in terms of the unity, yet amidst the distinctions between, let's just say it, the Jewish religion and what would become the Christian religion. Look at what Jesus was instituting in John chapter 17, what we know as the Eucharist, as Holy Communion, out of the Passover meal. And we know our nation's history in terms of gender, racial, political, economic, and religious divisions. And we give thanks yet in the midst of that for the signs of love and grace. You might say, well, preacher, I thought you were to be extolling good news. This morning, and it's always important to end with good news. And that's how I'm going to conclude this morning's sermon. Amidst all of the great divisions that we have, we hear and we cling to the visions and the truth that we know about our faith and about the human community. Where am I standing right now? But in the front of the baptismal font. In the midst of all the horror and the terror that is in human life, we give thanks for the waters of baptism. Because no matter of past mistakes, current mistakes, in whatever setting, personal or otherwise, we as the followers of that great rabbi from Nazareth know that those waters cleanse and renew and restore in the midst of difficulties that we don't know our way through, other than that we hang on to somebody else's hand and put our hands into the hands of Jesus. We turn to and look at, as you look at the altar, another sign of love and grace. That bread from heaven continues to nourish us in the emptiness and the voids, in the parched deserts that we live through in our own lives, in our nation, and in our world. As we remember these signs, and as I know we don't come forward, but the Eucharist for me, Holy Communion, has always been for me the Lutheran altar call. That right, this weekend is not just about remembering, but that we always need to turn our remembrances into action. Our whys into what shall I now do? In my own simple, small, but important ways. We hear the word sent 3 times in our short gospel text for today. And as we would normally come forward for our altar call to receive and to listen and to hear the words, the body of Christ given for you. For you. The cup of salvation, the cup of healing given for you. And as we know that we are anointed, just a couple of weeks ago on Mother's Day, I ended the sermon there about in memory of her, the unnamed woman who came in the midst of a lot of men and knelt at Jesus' feet and the bickering about, oh my God, do you know how much that cost? And so may we go from here in memory of those who have died, and I'm sorry to say, and those who will continue to die at the hands of violence. No matter what the form of violence is later today and tomorrow, that we continue to be as united as we can, uniting with others to try and combat and resist the evil within and the evil without. And let the church say,